This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 389, entitled "A Boomer Masculist Looks at the Black Pillars." Description: this flyer looks at the black pillars, that is, the young men who have totally given up on getting a date, let alone any sex, from young women, who are now in a position using e-dating sites like Tinder, Bumble, Instagram, etc., to exercise their hypergamous natures to an extreme degree, swiping right for only the top 1 in 1,000 of males, that is, the extreme alphas, starving the rest of the more average men of female attention, affection and sex. This flyer gives my boomer masculist advice on how this problem will play itself out. Now the flyer itself. A boomer masculist looks at black pillars, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. A black pillar is a young man who has metaphorically swallowed the black pill. That is, he has accepted that he's never even going to get a date, let alone get any sex, due to young women utterly rejecting him on social media dating sites such as Tinder, Bumble, Instagram, Happen, etc. Why is this phenomenon occurring? Because modern technology has allowed young women to be able to fully tap into their hypergamous natures, that is, the evolved female tendency to want to mate up with a superior male who can provide her with superior DNA for her kids, so that her kids have superior DNA to hers, which is obviously good for the species, so evolved, and all women have it. In theory, women would love to mate with the very best, the most superior of men, but that's not realistic, since the best of men would not be content with average or below average women and would not give them the time of day. Research shows that if the IQ gap within a couple is more than 5 IQ points, that is, if the man is smarter than the woman by more than that amount, he will get bored and frustrated with her inferior intelligence and leave the relationship, which explains why the average IQ difference of women is about 4 IQ points lower than men's, which is consistent with the above 5 IQ points constraint. But e-dating websites like Tinder and Bumble, etc., selection is based largely on looks alone, that is, based on photos that men and women submit electronically that other people use in their selection of dateable partners. With earlier dating sites, it used to be the rule that about 80% of women wanted to date with the top 20% of men in terms of looks. That is the so-called 80-20 rule. But now with Tinder and similar e-dating sites, it's more like the 1,000-to-1 rule. In other words, nearly all the young women who use these sites are choosing only the most physically attractive men to make a dating or sexual connection with. You may have heard the expression swiping left, which in modern parlance means rejecting. Because when a young woman sees a photo of a potential male dating partner, she merely swipes left if she is not interested in dating the guy. Women are thus hugely less realistic about the proportion of men that they swipe right with, that is, accept as a potential dating partner, than men, due to women's hypergamous instinct and due to the fact that since many of the most attractive men use Tinder, etc., as hookup sites, that is, as a means to find a one-night stand sexual partner, average women are able to have a one-night stand with an alpha male, that is, a man who is much handsomer than she is pretty, much wealthier than she is, much smarter than she is, and this one-night stand experience goes to her head. She is often overwhelmed by the idea that she's capable of attracting, pulling an alpha male into her bed, and from then on feels that she is worthy only of having an alpha male as a bed partner to sex with, and hence rejects in future all the lesser males she sees on Tinder, etc., thus black pilling them, that is, the vast majority of men. In practice, modern young women, usually in their late teens to late 20s, are rejecting a large proportion of more ordinary men in favour of the alpha males, the TDHers, that is, the tall, dark and handsome males who make their vaginas wet, due to the idea that these women might be able to get some of his quality DNA for her kid. Men are much more realistic about their selection of potential sexual partners, with a more 50-50 rule. That is, about half of the males are selecting the top 50% of the females, in terms of looks at least. So with men operating on a much more realistic 50-50 rule, and women on a hypergamous 1,000-to-1 rule, what impact is this having on young men who are trying to find dateable women on e-dating sites like Tinder, Bumble, etc.? The result is devastating. It's created a sexual and relationship desert for most young men, where nearly all women reject them, swiping right for only the elite alpha males. Most males, for example, the bottom 95%, are not alphas. They have looks that range over the 4, 5 and 6 range, where 5 is average, 4 is plain, 6 is not bad. In brackets, 7 is pretty or handsome, 8 is very pretty, hunky, 9 is beautiful, drop-dead gorgeous, a real hunk, and 10 is virtually impossible, that is, movie star level. At the other end, 3 is ugly, 2 is hideous, and 1 is a total yuck. Intercultural studies have been done asking tribal people to rank photos of white people in terms of facial attractiveness, and they give the same results as white rankers. So beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, but rather is an objective trait that all cultures detect with similar rankings. It's the high-ranking alpha males who attract nearly all the sexual and romantic attention of young women, thanks to e-dating sites like Tinder, Bumble, etc. What are the other 95% of young men who are rejected by nearly all young women doing with themselves as they come to terms with constant rejection, with not getting any swipes right from women? ? They are getting depressed, giving up on dating, let alone hoping to get some sex from women, which is what they really want. They want the passion and tenderness that comes from an intimate relationship with a woman, but they're not getting it. You may wonder why I chose the term black pillar in the title. The term black pillar contrasts with terms such as red pillar and blue pillar that are commonly used in the manosphere, that is, the internet sites used by men to discuss men's issues. The red pillars are men, usually MGTOWs, that's men going their own way, who see women as not loving men unconditionally, the way men tend to do with women more so. MGTOWs see women more as manslavers, out to sexploit men to extract resources from men, to make men pay for women to have babies. Taking the red pill to MGTOWs is the phrase that means that men have woken up to the bitter reality that women don't love men as much as vice versa, but see men more as cash machines to pay for women to have babies. Blue pillars are men who have not yet woken up to this reality as seen by the red pillars. Black pillars claim that red pillars live in another universe, since the red pillars, that is the MGTOWs, and the black pillars live in different generations. MGTOWs are usually in their 30s and 40s, and black pillars are often in their early 20s and usually under 30. The black pillars use the term black to express their mood, that is, the depression and despair they feel about getting any attention and passion from women, that is, none. It's depressing for them to be rejected by women in such huge numbers, as most young women express their hypergamous natures using the e-dating sites that most young people use nowadays. The black pillars complain to the red pillars that, quote, "At least you red pillars have had attention and sex from women and have chosen to walk away from women, whereas we black pillars have been denied this experience totally by young women who reject us en masse, preferring to give their attention and vaginas to the alpha males, who are such a small proportion of the male population at the expense of the vast majority of men." End quote. The red pillars, who hear this lament coming from the black pillars, can't deny the pain they hear from the black pillars. It's undeniable how strongly the black pillars are suffering, and since this is happening at a macro social scale, nothing good can come of it. Sexually frustrated young men, with their hormones raging, will turn violent, and there will be social costs in terms of higher crime rates, vandalism, etc. So what can be done about this huge problem that the black pillars are making public only recently, since e-dating apps like Tinder, etc., are a fairly recent invention that is less than a decade old? This flyer is aimed at giving some advice from a boomer masculist such as myself to young black pillars. Here it is. This black pill will be very difficult to swallow, but I don't see a quick solution. You'll just have to suffer through it for some years until society comes to some measure of equilibrium as it learns to adjust to the inferiorities of what is going on when the large majority of young women are swiping left the large majority of young men. This is end of part 1.